A very warm welcome to you all from a slightly rainy and cloudy London today. Hopefully, it's a bit more sunny where you are today. My name is Alex Whittles. I'm CEO and founder of Purple Frog Data Analytics, helping companies get on board with their data warehousing, data lakes, data analytics, reporting, machine learning, Microsoft Fabric, AI, etc., and also of Power BI Sentinel, helping everyone in the world using Power BI and Fabric get a better handle on their governance, disaster recovery, and auditing of Power BI and Fabric. Some brief things before we get started. We are recording the session for those that can't make it live. I'll be taking questions at the end of the session if that's okay. We have turned on the Q&A, so if you want to put all of your questions in the Q&A as we go along, then when we get to the end, then whatever time we have left, then Annabelle's going to help me go through those questions and we'll answer everything and anything we can. Anything we can't cover in this session, then I'll put my contact details up on the final slide. Please do feel free to get in touch, and happy to jump on a call, discuss anything in more detail that you want to cover. And great to see some very friendly names on here that we recognise. So thank you all for joining. Right, so I will skip to. So I want to reassure you, this is not going to be a sales pitch. This session. It's really a summary of the key challenges and opportunities that we currently see when discussing the data and AI capabilities with organisations like yourselves, as well as discussing with Microsoft and co. So I want to set the scene. It's 8:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and your board are meeting. The CFO asks Copilot for the year-on-year sales growth. The COO questions why that number differs from their Power BI report KPI by 2%, and no one in the room knows why, or even which number is actually correct. And all eyes turn to you, being responsible for the analytics and reporting platform in your organisation. And so you start investigating. Later on that day, you finally discover that a well-intentioned junior analyst made a change to a report KPI. They didn't know that the board used that report. They didn't know the KPI also existed in other reports. They didn't know the person who asked for the change didn't have the authority to request it. And Copilot didn't know which was the correct version of the report or the KPI. There's no documentation, no changelog, no rollback. The analyst shouldn't even have permission to change that production report. And you're being asked for evidence of your governance controls around this. Now, in this scenario, there's been no data breach. There's been no ransomware, no malicious intent, something far more common: success. Power BI and your analytics layer have grown into a business-critical data platform, but they're being governed like a reporting tool. Power BI is being used by around 95% of the Fortune 500 and is mission-critical for the majority of those. And AI is being implemented on top of this across the board. Yet governance has not kept pace. So today I want to talk about ways we can address this, not by slowing down adoption, but by exploring some of the core challenges and how the industry is evolving to help us with this. So let's start with a fundamental truth that the industry is grappling with right now. Across every major conference I've attended this year and speaking with a lot of organisations, the same message keeps coming through. AI projects are failing at an alarming rate. The number varies depending on who you talk to, but Forbes report that 85% of all AI projects fail. And that varies between 75 and 90%. And the root cause is not the AI technology itself. Most often, it's the data underneath your AI layer. And if we think about it, we can have the most sophisticated AI model in the world, but if it's being fed incomplete data, inconsistent definitions, ungoverned data sources, it'll produce unreliable outputs. Garbage in, garbage out hasn't changed just because we've added AI into the equation. It's got a lot worse. So the organizations that I see succeeding are the ones who recognized early that data quality, data governance, data consistency are prerequisites for AI, not afterthoughts. They build the foundation first. If your organization's investing heavily in AI, but hasn't invested equally in getting your data house in order, you're building on sand. According to Gartner, poor data quality costs organizations an average of $12.9 million per year. Now, that was a stat from Gartner from 2 years ago. So I fully expect that to be significantly higher now. And that's not just in wasted AI investments. That's across the board on invalid decisions, making decisions with incomplete information, chasing time, trying to manage an inconsistent data estate. Either way, it's a very, very expensive problem, and you can't just ignore it and carry on building on top of it. We have to sort out that fundamental layer before we move on. So if data is our foundation, what does good enough actually look like for AI? And the answer is, well, having data is no longer enough. Your data has to be clean. It has to be free from duplicates, has to be free from errors and inconsistencies. It needs to be governed with clear ownership, access control, quality standards, and critically, it has to be mapped for AI accessibility. And this is where a relatively new concept of ontologies come in. So ontology is a term borrowed from philosophy, but in the data world, it means defining your business concepts. What is a customer? What is a sale? What is a product? What is a site? And then mapping those concepts to the data assets within your organization. And I'm mainly from the Microsoft world. We work in Fabric and Azure and Synapse and Power BI, but this applies to all environments, no matter where your data is. The concepts are exactly the same. I will be talking about Microsoft technologies here, but the same concepts apply to whatever data foundation layer you're using. So why does an ontology matter? Well, because when an AI agent needs to answer a question, like what were our top selling products last quarter? It needs to know where products live, what top selling means. Is it volume? Is it value? Is it margin? What does it mean in your context? And then which of the data sources for that are authoritative? If we take one of the most basic, simple questions in an organization, what is a customer? That has many different answers depending on even who you talk to, let alone which data asset you go to. If you ask someone in marketing, then they'll probably say, well, all the people in our CRM. If you ask the sales team, it'll be everyone that's requested a quote. If you ask your finance team, it'll be someone who has actually purchased from you. They're all valid definitions of a customer, but they're all different in the context. So how does an AI tool understand what context you mean and where those different values are if it's not provided that definition? And this is where the ontology layer comes in. It has nothing to do with the technology and the data. It is about business language, business terminology. And then once you define that accurately, you can then map those to the relevant data assets within your organization or data layer. So without an ontology layer, AI systems are essentially guessing. They might pull from the wrong source, use an outdated definition, or combine incompatible data sets. And so the organizations that we see really getting ahead of the AI curve are those those investing in this semantic layer, the data layer, but also the ontology mapping layer as well of their business, the shared understanding of what their data means in a business context before they scale AI across the business. So what are Microsoft doing about this? You may have seen the announcements in FabCon, the Microsoft Fabric conference over in Atlanta, about Microsoft IQ. This is the framework that they've now introduced to try and help and tackle this problem. I think it's a very important concept to understand because it really crystallizes how all of this can work in practice. And there are three core pillars of the Microsoft IQ world. There's Work IQ, Fabric IQ, and Foundry IQ. And you'll start seeing a lot more of these as time goes on. So what do these mean? Well, Work IQ is the intelligence layer across Microsoft 365. Think of it as your documents, emails, Teams conversations, SharePoint content. It's the knowledge your organization creates every day through normal business work practices. For example, when a sales team creates proposals, tracks customer communications, builds forecasts in Excel, all of that is Work IQ. Fabric IQ is the data analytics infrastructure, Microsoft Fabric as a tool. It brings together the data engineering, data science, real-time analytics, and business intelligence into one unified platform. It's where your structured and semi-structured data lives, your sales data, your finance data, operational metrics. For a retail business, for example, it's going to be where you'd have your transaction history, inventory levels, customer demographics, etc. All modeled, cleaned, governed, secured, And this is also where the ontology sits, because that is the source of your core business data. So the ontology sits within the Fabric IQ layer to map the business concept into that. Then the third pillar is Foundry IQ. And Foundry, pretty much, Microsoft are rebadging AI to Foundry. So everywhere you see Foundry, think AI. So Foundry IQ is the AI insights layer. It's what takes the data from Fabric IQ and the knowledge from Work IQ and turns it into actionable intelligence. Foundry agents can reason across both structured data and unstructured documents to achieve a business decision or action or agent. And here's really the critical point, that if Fabric IQ in the middle, your data layer, if that's not solid, trusted, clean, and well structured, Foundry IQ has nothing reliable to work with. It's back to our analogy of building a castle on sand. So how does this IQ work in practice? Well, imagine a CFO asks an AI agent, what's our exposure in the European market? Well, the agent, first of all, needs to pull structured financial data from Fabric IQ, from your data lake, data warehouse, wherever that may be. It needs to cross-reference that with recent strategy documents and board papers from Work IQ, and then synthesize an answer, blending those together using Foundry IQ. If the financial data in Fabric is incomplete or ungoverned, you're going to get the wrong answer. And that isn't just a frustration, that's potentially dangerous to a business. If your organization is starting to rely on AI tools, Copilot agents to provide answers to questions, how can you build trust that you can actually take action on those answers? You can only do that if you have a solid foundation layer with your core data within Fabric IQ. So imagine a supply chain scenario. Fabric IQ could flag an anomaly. Certain suppliers maybe are delivering late more frequently than usual. Work IQ then observes lengthy email chains and recurring delay review meetings, identifying that operation teams are being overwhelmed by manual follow-ups. And then Foundry IQ combines these together, analyzes the relevant supplier contracts, SLAs, and penalty clauses, and can then automatically raise a Teams message within a team, raising the concern and detailing the evidence it's found and the suggested action. You could then take that forward, and if you wanted to, have that automatically take a decision. That's another question that's outside the scope of this session. The first step is, how do we get the information to provide that proactive recommendation and alerting of a problem? So the result of this is an AI agent that can recommend escalations, it can draft emails, it can quote the relevant SLA clauses, it can flag process improvements without anyone actually having to manually pull that information together. And all of this is proactive, not reactive. Think of these agents as something that can monitor and raise a flag without having to have a team of people constantly checking everything going on. And all of this sits within the Microsoft IQ world. So let's move on to data governance, and specifically why it's now kind of been escalated to a board level conversation. A number of years ago, when we were talking to customers about our Power BI Sentinel governance tool, it was really the Power BI teams and the IT teams that were managing that conversation. Over the last couple of years, that's transformed into board level conversations, and that's symptomatic of this changing across the board. Every organization is capturing more data than ever before, whether it's IoT sensors, real-time streams, customer interactions, financial transactions, social media, internal communications. The volume is staggering, how much data we're collecting. But the uncomfortable truth is that every piece of data we store without proper governance is a potential liability and an increasing risk. 20% of information security breaches come from internal staff having more access to data than they need. And so data governance isn't just about compliance or ticking regulatory boxes. It's about knowing what data you have. It's about knowing who owns it, where it came from, who can access it, who's accountable for it, and whether it's accurate and trustworthy. Now, we've It's typical for operational database systems to have had high levels of governance and security and monitoring for quite some time. But when it comes to analytics platforms such as Microsoft Fabric and Power BI, this to me becomes even more critical because this is a single point of all of your data coming together in a format that is combined and conformed and easily accessible, which increases the risk because if that data gets exfiltrated or exposed, the risk is across all of your platforms. You might have thousands of reports, dozens of data pipelines, and thousands of users, all relying on data that may or may not be trustworthy. So analytics governance means understanding the lineage of every metric you have, every KPI, every number that appears on a dashboard. And I'm seeing this shift in conversations at board level, moving from an IT concern up to a board level concern because of the risk that this now poses. And when we then layer other tools such as AI on top of it, it gets even more of a risk. So we're seeing that organizations that have invested in governance frameworks, data catalogs, lineage tracking, permissions monitoring, quality monitoring, and also just defining accountability of each data asset, are the ones that are sleeping soundly at night. At this point, I want to raise a critical mindset shift. Data governance used to be about lock everything down. If you turn everything off, don't let anybody do anything, then you're safe. But actually, what are you investing in? You're investing in all of your data platform and not letting people use it. That's more destructive than constructive. If we change our mindset to data governance is about empowering staff. If you have sufficient controls, transparency, and auditing in place, you can let your staff loose with the data and fully embrace self-service analytics and AI capabilities, knowing that you know exactly who's doing what they're doing with the data, nothing's being exfiltrated or extracted, and you can visibly monitor the risks and then align that with SOC 2, ISO 27001, etc. So data governance is all-encompassing, pervasive, and critical. Well, no. I'm now going to backtrack on all of that and immediately add a nuance to it because not all data needs to be governed equally. And there's again a typical mindset of governance is huge. We can't do everything, so we can't even start. Well, not necessarily. Um, every data asset in your organization can be defined as to what level of governance it needs. And this is where the concept of a data mesh and a data fabric infrastructure really comes to the forefront. And they're game changers for how organizations can think about data architecture. So think of this as a spectrum. On one end, you have your governed core, your mission critical data, your financial reports, your customer master data, your regulatory submissions. This data needs the highest possible level of governance, strict access controls, full data lineage in place, certified definitions, regular quality checks, etc. On the other end, you have your agile edge. Data that departmental users or power users need for exploration, rapid analysis, prototyping. A marketing team pulling in social media data to test a campaign hypothesis. A supply chain analyst combining external shipping data with internal logistics. This data needs some governance. You need to know that it exists. You need to know who's using it, but it doesn't need the same rigor as your core financial data. And a data mesh approach recognizes this reality. It allows multiple data assets to be hosted within one storage infrastructure, individually controlled with domain-specific ownership and permissions and configuration, but all accessed through a common discovery and security layer. And then when you add tooling on top of this data mesh, data ingestion, transformation, ETL, AI, exploratory tools, reporting tools, this becomes a data fabric. So data mesh provides the storage and security. The fabric provides the engineering, reporting, and management layer that makes it all work together. And this is the combination of the concept behind Microsoft Fabric and why it's called Microsoft Fabric, because it provides one lake as the single cross-asset storage layer, and then all of the Fabric tools on top of it, including Power BI from reporting, that brings it into a one-stop shop for all of your data. And once you've got this data mesh, data fabric in place, every new data asset you need you can determine where it sits on that spectrum of highly governed to highly agile, and define the right level of controls, authorization, accountability, ownership, etc., of that particular asset. So the key message here is find the right balance. Don't try and apply the same level of governance to everything. You'll either slow innovation to a crawl or fail to govern what matters most. And then we move on to AI governance, one of the more tricky concepts these days because it's evolving at such a rapid rate. We talked about governing data, but managing and governing AI is critical for regulatory compliance and risk. Data governance tells you whether your inputs are trustworthy. AI governance tells you whether your outputs are trustworthy. And there are several dimensions to this. Model oversight. Who approved this model for production use? What data was it trained on? Are you taking a backup of that training set so that when you get asked questions about it in the future, can you go back and validate that? Has it been tested against your specific business context? Just because a large language model can generate impressive text doesn't mean it understands your industry regulations or your company's risk appetite. Next, we will move on to output accountability. When an AI agent makes a recommendation or takes an action, who is responsible? If a co-pilot generated financial summary is wrong and it goes into a board pack, who's accountable for that? This is a question that most organizations haven't answered yet. And then we have bias and hallucination management. AI models can and do hallucinate wildly. They can give some quite scary answers to things that just don't exist. They present fabricated information as fact all too often with complete confidence. And they can also perpetuate the biases present in our training data. And we need processes to detect, flag, and manage these risks. And then the regulatory landscape is moving very fast. The EU AI Act is already in force with compliance deadlines approaching. I think it's like 35 million euro fine if you breach some of these or a percentage of your turnover. Other jurisdictions are following. I know, for example, in the EU AI Act coming into effect, I think in August this year, is coverage for high risk AI. So any AI tool that can impact a person's socioeconomic status, whether that may be health, income, employment, etc. Anything that can have that impact is classed as high risk, and you have to be very, very careful to comply with these. And that's going to become a bigger and bigger challenge as we try and use AI in more and more areas of the business. The bottom line, though, is AI governance is not optional. It's not something that you can bolt on later. It needs to be designed into your AI strategy right from the start. So with all these challenges, data quality, data governance, AI governance, some organizations attempted to hit the brakes entirely. I've heard people say, we're not ready for AI yet. We've banned ChatGPT until we have a policy. And I understand that instinct, but I'd argue this is the worst possible strategy. AI adoption is happening, whether you lead it or not. Your employees are already using ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, or other AI tools. If they're not doing it in a sanctioned way, they're doing it without your knowledge, without your data protections, and without your governance frameworks. Shadow AI is the new shadow IT, and it's far more dangerous. So instead of banning AI, we need to embrace it with guardrails. We need to create an adoption framework that gives people the tools to use AI productively while protecting the organization. The productivity gains are real and immediate. I've seen teams cut document generation by over 80%. Analysts who spend 3 days preparing data for board packs, cutting that down to 3 hours. I've seen developers write code 5 times faster with AI assistance. The key is starting smart. It's picking high value, low risk use cases first. Things like internal document summarization, meeting note generation, meeting minutes, first draft content creation, document knowledge bases internally, internal agents summarizing support tickets, for example. These give your teams quick wins. They build confidence in the tools and the capability, and they don't expose you to significant risks. One of the things we implemented recently in Purple Frog and Powered by Sentinel was we're ISO 27001 certified, and we have a very large set of policies and procedures that go with that policy. And it's unreasonable to expect every member of staff to read through every policy on a regular basis. So actually trying to find out details about what our policies are could be quite time consuming. So we've created an agent for it. Embedded within Teams, anyone can ask it a question. Who's our data compliance officer? What's our policy on USB keys, etc., etc., etc. And it gives a straight answer very, very quickly with a reference to the document. So it actually really empowers the team to find out quick access to information internally, but also then hooking those into your data systems to be able to answer questions about customers, for example. We then need to invest in upskilling. AI doesn't replace people, and it shouldn't replace people. It should amplify their capability. A good analyst with AI tools becomes a great analyst, but only if they understand both the potential and the limitations of the technology. So what are the different kind of layers of AI here? Well, far too many organizations today, when they think of AI, think, I've rolled out Copilot, we're fine. The assistant that works with Word, Excel, Teams, etc. And Copilot is a genuinely useful tool. It's a productivity tool, saves time on routine tasks. But the AI landscape is evolving rapidly beyond Copilot. When I use Copilot, I mean Claude and ChatGPT as well, all these chatbots. The first thing I would really encourage you to look at is skills. Make the most of Copilot, ChatGPT, and Claude. If you recruit a junior intern, if you ask them to do a task, then they're going to do it their way, how they want to do it, not how you want them to do it. So you've got to give them some instructions. You've got to give them a briefing document to make sure they do it in the way that you want the task done. Document that guidance in a markdown text file, give it to your AI tool, and that becomes an AI skill. It helps an AI understand how you want to do things in your business or your role. You use skills to tailor AI to do tasks as you want them done. It's very easy to do and provides a transformational shift in extracting the maximum benefit of these tools. But this is still in a reactive world. You're asking it a question. The next leap is agentic AI. AI systems that don't just respond to prompts, they take autonomous actions. They can monitor your supply chain data and automatically flag anomalies, or process incoming customer queries, categorize them and route them to the right team, all without human intervention. The key difference, Copilot waits for you to ask, agents are proactive. Each agent is tasked with a single job to automate something that would otherwise take time and resource. And we can build an army of these agents to help our organizations run effectively. It's up to you, however, whether you want the agent to actually take the action or just recommend the action. Beyond agents, we go to Foundry, Microsoft's framework for reasoning across both structured data from Fabric and unstructured content from Microsoft 365. Excuse me. This is where AI starts to deliver genuinely strategic insight. A Foundry agent can ask questions like, what are the risks to our Q4 targets? And it could reason across your financial models, board minutes, etc., to give you an augmented decision-making answer. And here's the crucial caveat. Every step on this journey requires more data maturity. Copilot works well with messy data. Agents require governed data. Foundry requires governed data and a semantic layer. So where do you want to be on this journey? Where do you want to be? When new AI capabilities become available, do you want to be able to embrace those? Agents, Foundry, advanced analytics, do you want to be able to adopt them quickly? Or do you want to try and find that the experience is disappointing? If putting a new AI tool in place, if the AI tool can't find the right data, if it produces unreliable summaries and employees don't trust it, all of that investment is wasted in that AI tool. Getting your data strategy right before your AI strategy, making sure you've got a governed set of data assets and everything else, for example, is critical to getting that core foundation to allow you to be a leader in this space. So I'm going to leave you with 5 questions to take back to your board. Do you have a data strategy? And a technology strategy is not enough. Buying Microsoft Fabric or Copilot licenses is not a data strategy. A data strategy defines what data you need, how it's governed, who owns it, accountability, how it supports your business objectives. Number 2 is, can you trust the numbers in your board pack? Can you trust the numbers in your report? It actually sounds simple, but it's quite a profound question. When the CFO presents quarterly results, can you trace every number back to its source? If the answer is I'm not sure, you've got a governance problem. Third is, who is accountable for your AI outputs? When an AI agent sent a customer communication, who is responsible for that? Who signs it off? Accountability frameworks need to be established before AI is deployed at scale in your organization. Fourth, are we governing data at the right levels? We discussed earlier about data mesh and data fabric. Don't have one governance rules for everything. That's not a viable way forward. Look at implementing a data mesh or data fabric approach to give you the flexibility to manage and govern properly. And then lastly, what's your plan to move from chatbots like Copilot to AI agents? Copilot is today's tool. Agents and Foundry are tomorrow's tool. If you want to invest in your AI future, this is where to start. So I'd encourage you to take those questions back to your board meeting and see what kind of conversations they spark. So to briefly summarize the key takeaways, AI is not a technology problem, it's a data problem. The 85% failure rate we see in AI projects is overwhelmingly driven by poor data quality and lack of governance and missing semantic layers. Investigate Microsoft IQ, Work IQ, Fabric IQ, Foundry IQ, providing a framework for understanding how your data can hook into your work documents with an AI intelligence. Governance is not optional. Both data governance and AI governance need to be part of your core strategy from day one. Do not ban AI. Embrace it with guardrails. Your team are already using it. Give them the tools and frameworks to use it safely and productively. And the gap between leaders and laggards is widening. Decide where you want to be. And the difference is not budget, it's strategy and sequence. Data first, then AI. And then finally, take those 5 questions back to your board, and that will give you a starting point as to where you need to look to try and move the organization forward. I'm aware of over a little bit over time. I am happy to go through some questions now. We'll have a look to see if there's anything in the Q&A. My contact details are up on the screen. If you need to drop off, please do feel free to send me an email with any questions you do have that we can't cover here. So let's have a quick look at the Q&A. Would you recommend using out-of-the-box AI tools or going more bespoke? It's the typical buy or build approach, and there's no single right answer. I would say where out-of-the-box tools work well is, for example, if you use HubSpot. Great, it has AI tools that help you with HubSpot. What it can't do is hook into your sales data in your Fabric pipeline. It can't hook into your support desk ticketing system. So a lot of AI problems and questions need data from multiple places. An out-of-the-box AI capability in a tool is going to give you access to AI in the tool, not across your wider organization. So think about the challenges, think about the problems you're trying to solve, and think about what data sources you need to be able to solve those problems, and that will tell you whether you can use an out-of-box or you have to build yourself. Right, we do, I think, have to wrap up at that point because we are 4 minutes over. I do apologise for that. But a big thank you for joining the session. Again, if you have any questions, please do drop me an email. Happy to answer anything, or jump on a call if you want to discuss in more detail. Thank you very much.